Today, we zoom into the economy of Massachusetts. Behind the numbers and statistics lies the outsized influence of its wealthiest resident. Their fortune doesn't just build empires, it shifts industries, jobs, and even the state's GDP. Let's uncover how one person's wealth can reshape an entire economy in this series on billionaires and their influence on America's states. What if the very fabric of a state, its institutions, its politics, and even its landscape, has been shaped by the same handful of family names for over 400 years? Imagine a world where the power brokers aren't just the flashy tech moguls or the latest Wall Street titans, but rather the quiet, almost invisible descendants of those who arrived on these shores centuries ago. We're talking about the families who've been signing the checks, endowing the universities, and, yes, quietly picking the governors since before America even had a dollar to its name. Walk the cobblestone streets of Beacon Hill, where gas lamps still flicker against historic brick, and you'll feel their presence. Flip through the pages of a Harvard diploma, and you'll likely find a name or two from these clans among the founders or benefactors. Trace the funding of the earliest railroad stretching to the Pacific, or the very first textile mills that sparked America's Industrial Revolution, and you'll bump into the same surnames again and again. These aren't just wealthy people. They're the architects of a legacy, the custodians of an influence so profound it's woven into the very DNA of Massachusetts. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the 10 wealthiest old money dynasties that, in everything but official title, still own Massachusetts. They're the Boston Brahmins, a term that speaks to an elite social class known for its long-standing prominence in society, politics, and business. From the fortunes made in the rough-and-tumble world of opium clippers, to the precise engineering of shovel tycoons, from the quiet dignity of presidential lines to the thunderous impact of newspaper kings, these clans didn't just participate in New England society, they wrote its rules. And here's the kicker: they never really left. Stick around till we get to number one. Its combined portfolio is older than the US Constitution itself, and believe it or not, still outperforming the market. You might think you know wealth, but this is a different kind of power altogether. Coming in at number 10, we have the Bradfords. Their story begins not with a stock certificate, but with a perilous journey across the Atlantic. We're talking about the direct descendants of William Bradford, the iconic governor of Plymouth Colony, who stepped off the Mayflower in 1620. Imagine that, a family whose roots are literally entwined with the very founding of European settlement in New England. They weren't about building skyscrapers or flashy corporate empires. Their genius was in patience and property. While other families chased industrial booms, the Bradfords were quietly accumulating. Their early wealth wasn't from factories, but from the rhythms of the sea and the land. Picture shoreline mills powered by tidal flows, grinding grain or sawing timber, coupled with invaluable shipping rights granted directly by the crown. These weren't just permits, they were keys to early colonial commerce, giving them a distinct advantage in a nascent economy. As generations passed, the family demonstrated a shrewd adaptability. They pivoted from these foundational assets into the burgeoning fields of banking and textiles, understanding that the economic tides were shifting. But perhaps their most legendary move, quietly buying up vast tracts of Cape Cod back when it was considered remote, wild, and incredibly cheap. Think about it. Pristine coastline, untouched dunes, and cranberries literally free for the picking. While everyone else was scrambling for urban plots, the Bradfords were envisioning beachfront estates and future development, laying claim to a natural treasure that would one day become some of the most coveted real estate in the world. Today, the Bradford name isn't emblazoned on corporate towers, but it graces the libraries of a dozen prestigious prep schools, a subtle nod to their enduring influence in education and philanthropy. More importantly, family trusts, managed with a discretion that borders on secrecy, still control entire coastal towns' worth of real estate. The net result of their 4-century strategy, an almost incomprehensible amount of compound interest and a property portfolio that, quite literally, you cannot replicate at any price. It's a testament to the power of foresight, patience, and the earliest claim stakes in America. At number 9, let's talk about the Higginsons. When you think of Boston's cultural heart, what comes to mind? For many, it's the Boston Symphony Orchestra, a world-renowned institution. Well, the Higginsons didn't just attend concerts, they basically willed the BSO into existence. It was Colonel Henry Lee Higginson, a veteran of the Civil War and a man of immense vision, who, out of his own brokerage account, bankrolled the initial seasons. Imagine that level of personal commitment to the arts, a true patron who saw the need for cultural enrichment in a rapidly industrializing city. And the family's commitment didn't stop there. They've been underwriting cellists, funding programs, and sitting on boards ever since, ensuring the BSO's continued excellence. But where did this deep well of philanthropic capital come from? The Higginson fortune began in the bustling, often cutthroat world of 18th century West Indies trading. Picture sleek sailing ships navigating treacherous waters, laden with goods like rum, sugar, and molasses, bringing immense profits back to Boston's wharves. It was a high-risk, high-reward enterprise that laid the groundwork for their generational wealth. As America began to stitch itself together with steel rails in the post-Civil War era, the Higginsons, ever astute, shifted their focus. They poured their capital into railroad bonds, financing the expansion that connected the nation and further cementing their financial power. Today, you'll find modern Higginsons not in the spotlight, but in the quiet corridors of power. They sit on the boards of major museums, guiding cultural institutions, and are key partners in high-stakes hedge funds, proving their adaptability in contemporary finance. Yet, for all their modern influence, they remain deeply rooted in tradition. Many still summer in the very same charming Berkshire cottages their great-great-grandparents built, a tangible link to a past that informs their present. It's a perfect illustration of old money meeting new returns, all while staying firmly planted in the same exclusive zip codes. Their story is one of enduring influence, both financially and culturally, a quiet force that continues to shape Massachusetts. At number 8, we hit upon a lineage that can only be described as political royalty, the Dudley-Winthrop axis. This isn't just a family. It's a foundational power block of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Their story begins with Thomas Dudley, a formidable figure who served as governor of the Bay Colony an astonishing 4 times. He was a man of stern Puritan conviction, instrumental in shaping the early laws and religious practices of the fledgling colony. But the true consolidation of power came through a strategic alliance. His daughter, Anne Bradstreet, a celebrated poet in her own right, married into the Winthrop line. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a merger of 2 of the most influential families, locking both clans into a political dynasty that effectively elected governors for well over a century. Their wealth wasn't just inherited, it was strategically acquired and maintained through the levers of colonial power. Imagine land grants not in acres, but in parcels the size of entire counties, awarded by a government they largely controlled. These vast holdings laid the groundwork for immense generational wealth. Beyond land, they held lucrative monopolies, such as customs posts that collected duties on all incoming goods, and even the exclusive right to operate the ferry between Boston and Charlestown, a critical transportation link in the early days. These were the economic engines that kept their coffers overflowing, providing a steady stream of revenue that few could match. Fast forward through the centuries, and you see the Dudley Winthrop descendants demonstrating an uncanny ability to adapt. As the industrial age dawned, they shrewdly divested from colonial holdings and poured their capital into the burgeoning railroad industry, then transitioned into blue-chip stocks, ensuring their wealth grew with the American economy. Today, their influence is just as profound, though far more discreet. Their substantial foundation capital quietly underwrites an astonishing half of all conservation land in eastern Massachusetts. Think about that for a moment. You may never meet a Dudley or a Winthrop at your local grocery store, but chances are you hike, picnic, or simply enjoy the preserved natural beauty of Massachusetts on their dime every single weekend. It's a quiet, powerful legacy of environmental stewardship, ensuring their imprint on the landscape for generations to come. Coming in at number 7, we have a family whose name might not conjure images of gilded carriages, but rather the very tools that built America, the Ames family. They made shovels, yes, humble shovels, and through sheer industrial might and foresight, turned them into a near monopoly on American expansion. The Ames Shovel Works, nestled in eastern Massachusetts, wasn't just a factory. It was an engine of progress. They cranked out the blades that literally dug the Erie Canal, carving a path for commerce across New York. Their shovels broke ground for the Transcontinental Railroad, uniting a vast continent with ribbons of steel. And closer to home, they dug every New England cellar hole you can trip over, laying the foundation for countless homes and businesses. This wasn't just manufacturing, it was nation building, one shovel at a time. The family's influence wasn't confined to industry. Oliver Ames, a titan of the shovel empire, became governor of Massachusetts, bridging the gap between economic power and political leadership. His son, following in his footsteps, built the magnificent chateau-esque mansions you can still admire dotting the North Shore, grand architectural statements of their immense wealth and status. These weren't just homes, they were monuments to an industrial dynasty. When the shovel boom eventually subsided, as all industrial eras do, the Ames family demonstrated their remarkable foresight. They hadn't put all their eggs in one basket. Long before the decline, they had already shrewdly diversified their holdings, pouring capital into banking, investing heavily in the burgeoning railroad network they helped build, and acquiring significant real estate. This strategic diversification ensured their wealth not only survived, but thrived beyond the peak of their manufacturing prowess. Today, the Ames Family Trust still owns a substantial chunk of downtown Boston, a tangible reminder of their enduring financial power. And their philanthropic arm funds more scholarships than most states, quietly shaping the future through education, proving that even a family built on shovels can dig deep into the bedrock of American society. Lowell isn't just a city on a map in Massachusetts. It's a brand name, synonymous with a particular kind of Boston Brahmin intellect and industrial ingenuity. This family didn't just witness the Industrial Revolution, they practically invented it in America. The story often starts with John Lowell, affectionately known as the Old Lawyer. He was a man of extraordinary foresight who, in the early 19th century, began quietly buying up the cascading waterfalls along the Merrimack River. At the time, many saw just picturesque scenery or obstacles to navigation. But Lowell, he saw power. He realized, long before most, that these rushing waters could be harnessed, not just for grist mills, but to drive the machinery of textile mills on an unprecedented scale. By the 1840s, the Lowell family had established what became known as the Lowell system, a revolutionary approach to textile manufacturing. They didn't just own the factories, they controlled the entire ecosystem. They owned the looms, employed the labor, famously the mill girls, who were offered education and cultural opportunities alongside their work, and wielded the legal briefs that stifled competitors and protected their burgeoning empire. It was a masterclass in vertical integration and strategic dominance, but the Lowells weren't content with merely industrial might. Their influence permeated every aspect of New England society. They produced celebrated poets like James Russell Lowell, whose verses graced American literature. They gave us Harvard presidents, shaping the minds of generations, and even a Supreme Court justice, demonstrating their reach into the highest echelons of law. Because, as the saying goes, why just own the factory when you can also write the curriculum, define the culture, and interpret the laws? This dedication to intellectual and civic leadership is a hallmark of the Lowell legacy. Today, the Lowell name is still prominently displayed on prestigious institutes from MIT to Harvard Medical School, a testament to their enduring philanthropic and educational footprint. And if you want a glimpse into their financial savvy, rumor has it that the family office, with its centuries of experience, rotated some of those early mill profits into Apple stock decades ago. Try beating that timing for long-term investment wisdom. At number 5, we have the Bradley family, a name that put the ink in Boston's earliest newspapers and, much later, delivered the punch of Watergate coverage that shook a nation. Their story in America began with the arrival of the first Bradleys in Dorchester, Massachusetts in 1631. These early ancestors weren't seeking fame. They were pragmatic merchants, laying the groundwork for a family tradition of astute business dealings. As Boston blossomed into the Athens of America in the 18th and 19th centuries, a hub of intellectual thought, commerce, and finance, the Bradleys, ever adaptable, shrewdly transitioned from shipping and trade into the burgeoning world of banking. This move positioned them perfectly to capitalize on the city's economic ascent. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the family's legacy took a dramatic, nationally prominent turn with Benjamin Crowninshield Bradley. As the legendary executive editor of the Washington Post, he became a towering figure in American journalism. It was under his fearless leadership that the Post pursued the Watergate scandal, ultimately helping to bring down a president. Now, that's a resume bullet that speaks volumes about courage, integrity, and the power of the press. While Benjamin Crowninshield Bradley was making history in Washington, the broader Bradley clan meticulously maintained its deep Massachusetts footprint. This was achieved through carefully structured trusts, generously stuffed with banking dividends, ensuring a continuous flow of generational wealth. They also made several blockbuster real estate plays along the picturesque Charles River, securing prime assets in Boston's most coveted locations. Today, the Bradleys exemplify the quiet, persistent influence of old money. The current generation isn't resting on past laurels. They're still editing, still investing in new ventures, and perhaps most tellingly, still invited to every boardroom that truly matters, whether in finance, media, or philanthropy. Their Harvard-educated lineage continues to produce leaders who understand the subtle art of power and influence, ensuring the Bradley name remains a quiet force in Massachusetts and beyond. You know John Adams and his son, John Quincy Adams, as two pivotal U.S. presidents, figures whose lives are enshrined in American history. But did you know that the Adams family, as a dynastic force, never really left the room where it happens? Their journey began not in palatial estates, but as humble Braintree farmers in colonial Massachusetts. It was their extraordinary legal smarts, coupled with an unwavering commitment to liberty, that parlayed their modest origins into revolutionary politics. John Adams, the brilliant and fiery lawyer, became a leading voice for independence, a key architect of the American Republic and later its second president. The Adams family didn't just serve one term, they established a political dynasty. John Quincy Adams, following in his father's footsteps, served as the sixth president, and the family continued to rotate through high-level diplomatic posts and influential political offices for generations. While the presidency doesn't exactly come with stock options or a direct salary that builds dynastic wealth, it undeniably opens doors. It provided unparalleled access to strategic land deals in a rapidly expanding nation, lucrative law partnerships that benefited from their unparalleled connections, and insider stakes in the earliest, most foundational banks and financial institutions. This wasn't about corruption. It was about the immense, intangible value of trust, reputation, and unparalleled access to information and opportunity. Today, the Adams family's enduring presence is visible in their tangible assets. They still own magnificent Beacon Hill townhouses, architectural gems that whisper tales of revolutionary fervor, and, in a nod to their maritime history and discreet wealth, they also possess a private island or two nestled in the outer Boston harbor, secluded havens that speak volumes about their enduring status. But perhaps their most unique and valuable asset is their unparalleled portfolio of historical documents, the vast Adams Papers, a treasure trove of letters, diaries, and political writings that chronicle the birth and early decades of the United States. Sotheby's, the famed auction house, practically keeps them on speed dial, understanding the immense historical and monetary value of these family archives. Power may ebb and flow, but a presidential brand, especially one so intertwined with the nation's founding, is truly forever. The Adams family didn't just make history, they preserved it, and in doing so, preserved their own unique place in the American aristocracy. Boston, Cabot, and God. This old joke, often whispered in hushed tones among the city's elite, perfectly encapsulates the towering status of the Cabot family. It suggests a hierarchy of power and reverence, placing the Cabots just below the divine and above all other Bostonians. And for good reason, the Cabots effectively cornered global shipping before container ships were even a glimmer in an engineer's eye. Their maritime empire was vast and daring. Picture their sleek, fast clipper ships cutting through the waves, laden with timber bound for Europe, returning with fine goods, then sailing south to the Caribbean for molasses, which would then be distilled into rum in New England. Regardless of the route or the cargo, they somehow always sailed back with not just profits, but substantial interest, demonstrating an unparalleled knack for international commerce and risk management. As the age of sail eventually gave way to steam and then to more modern forms of transport, the Cabots, ever the pragmatists, didn't cling to outdated technology. They pivoted with remarkable foresight. Their immense accumulated capital was shifted first into the burgeoning insurance industry, protecting the very ventures they once pioneered. Then, with an almost prescient understanding of future financial landscapes, they moved into what we would now call venture capital, long before the term even existed. They invested in nascent industries, spotting opportunities where others saw only risk, ensuring their wealth continued to grow and diversify. Today, the Cabot name isn't just a historical footnote. It's an active, powerful force. It graces the charitable trusts that control major hospitals, ensuring top-tier medical care for the region. It's prominently associated with esteemed art museums, preserving culture and history. And in a testament to their enduring real estate prowess, the Cabots are rumored to control a staggering half of the commercial real estate along Boston's prized waterfront. Their influence is so pervasive, yet so discreet, that you won't find them loudly proclaiming their achievements on social media. They don't tweet, they simply own the server farm, a witty, modern analogy for their quiet, foundational control over the infrastructure of power. The Cabots embody the essence of old money, deeply rooted, incredibly powerful, and profoundly understated. At number 2, we encounter a family whose colossal fortune is inextricably linked to one of the more uncomfortable truths of American economic history, the Forbes family. They didn't just build wealth, they built the first American railroad empire, and they financed it, in part, with opium profits from the infamous China trade. It's a challenging legacy, a vast fortune wrapped in a complex historical reality. The story begins with John Murray Forbes, a remarkable figure who, at just 19, arrived in Canton, China, then the epicenter of East-West trade. There, he quickly learned the stark difference between the lucrative trade of tea and the even more lucrative, though ethically fraught, trade of poppy. He returned to America with enough capital to do something truly transformative: bankroll the Michigan Central Railroad. This wasn't just any railroad, it was a critical artery in America's westward expansion, connecting the burgeoning industrial East with the vast resources of the heartland. Forbes's vision and capital literally laid the tracks for a new era of American commerce and transportation. Later generations of the Forbes family continued this pattern of shrewd investment and industrial leadership. They spun tracks into steel, becoming major players in the foundational industries of the nation. Then, with an eye always on the future, they transitioned their steel fortunes into private equity, adapting their investment strategies to the evolving financial landscape. The Forbes name, of course, has also resonated loudly on the national political stage. John Forbes Kerry, a direct descendant, carried the family name and its legacy of public service into the U.S. Senate, and later served as Secretary of State, demonstrating the family's enduring influence in government and foreign policy. But their physical footprint remains just as significant in Massachusetts. The family office, aptly named Cabot, Cabot and Forbes, a clear indication of the strategic intermarriage and consolidation of power we'll discuss next, still owns millions of square feet of prime Boston commercial space. It's a powerful testament to how old money adapts, thrives, and continues to shape the very skyline of the city. Their story is a complex tapestry of old money, new politics, and an enduring presence that literally defines the Boston landscape. All right, so technically, we've already met the Dudley Winthrop family, the Cabots, and the Forbeses. But here's the twist, the grand finale, the ultimate consolidation of power that truly defines old money in Massachusetts. By the Gilded Age, those venerable bloodlines weren't just coexisting, they were strategically intermarrying. The Dudley Winthrops, with their colonial political roots, began to intertwine with the Cabots, masters of global trade and finance. And then the Forbeses, titans of industry and railroads, joined the intricate web. What you end up with isn't just a collection of powerful families. It's one sprawling, interconnected mega-clan. Imagine a holiday card list so exclusive, so influential, that its recipients effectively decide who governs Massachusetts, who holds sway in the state's most powerful institutions. That's the kind of subtle, pervasive power we're talking about here. Their combined trusts control such an astronomical amount of prime Beacon Hill real estate that if they ever decided to liquidate, the entire Boston property market, particularly its historic core, would simply crash. Their holdings are not just assets, they are the very foundation of the city's economic stability. Historically, their impact is nothing short of foundational. It was this intertwined network that endowed Harvard's original professorships, laying the intellectual groundwork for one of the world's most prestigious universities. They underwrote the first transatlantic cable, literally connecting continents and revolutionizing global communication. And today, their influence in finance is just as profound. They still appoint the boards of no fewer than three of the state's five largest banks, wielding immense leverage over the financial pulse of Massachusetts. What's their current fortune? Conservative estimates place their combined wealth north of $40 billion. But honestly, that number, as staggering as it is, doesn't tell the full story. The real juice, the true power, isn't just in the billions. It's in the network. It's the judges they've influenced, the senators they've backed, the CEOs they've mentored, and yes, the occasional Supreme Court seat that seems to find its way to a family connection. They don't just own old money, they practically copyrighted it. Their influence isn't just a historical fact, it's a living, breathing, quietly dominant force that continues to shape Massachusetts in ways most people will never fully comprehend. So, after this deep dive into centuries of wealth and influence, which dynasty surprised you most? Was it the quiet power of the railroad barons, the foundational impact of the shovel tycoons, or perhaps the enduring political sway of that presidential line that never really stopped pulling strings? Drop your pick in the comments below, and if Massachusetts power rooms just got a little less mysterious for you, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the money that time forgot, but, as we've seen tonight, never truly forgave. 10 families, 4 centuries, one small state. Their fortunes weren't just accumulated, they were meticulously forged in the belly of clipper ships, hammered out in the din of textile mills, and shrewdly negotiated in backroom deals that predated the Securities and Exchange Commission by generations. Some of these families still reside in the very same elegant houses their ancestors built when John Adams was just a rookie lawyer dreaming of revolution. Others, ever the innovators, have diversified their portfolios into the cutting-edge worlds of biotech and cloud storage, proving that old money isn't stagnant. But here's the crucial thread. They do it all through the same intricately woven old boy networks, the same discrete connections that have served them for centuries. Old money in Massachusetts isn't just a bank balance or a collection of antique heirlooms. It's far more fundamental than that. It's an operating system, a deeply embedded infrastructure that governs everything from philanthropy to politics, from education to real estate, and tonight you got a rare, unfiltered peek under the hood of that system. It's a world where legacy isn't just a word, but a living, breathing force that continues to shape the past, present, and future of an entire state.